Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Garage Studio Modelers. I'm Dave Forrest, this is my good friend
Harvey Lowe.
And in today's episode we're going to continue work on the Stug, the winterized Stug. So if you remember from the last episode, we did some modulation on the underside, which is still there. And then since then I've completed the modulation, or completed painting the entire vehicle in just the Dunkelgelb color and modulated it. And then I took a big can of Tresemme hairspray and doused it in hairspray. And then I sprayed some Tamiya XF2 flat white over it. And then you can see, we'll get closer up shots later, but you can see I started working to remove some of the white using the hairspray chipping method. So I've done it on kind of half of the vehicle because I wanted to see what it would turn out like before getting on camera here with it. And then the other half here is not yet done, and that's what we're going to do in this episode here.
So first question.
Yeah.
What kind of hairspray do you use? I get that a lot. You say Tresemme.
I use the Tresemme. I think it's the 3. And it's a can. I bought that can like right after, like it's what I think it's what Rinaldi recommended, and I bought it right when he released his first book.
Have you ever?
And that was like what, maybe 2015, 2016,
yeah.
Like that. So
have you ever experimented with different brands of
No.
hairs? I haven't either. I kind of stick with what I like. Now you use Tresemme. I sounds like we're on a beauty salon show with makeup products. I like L'Oreal. L'Oreal purple can, if that helps. But I have used others, and I find that they're kind of more all
I have
the
to
same.
say I'm not terribly familiar with all of the hairspray out there.
But they're kind of, I don't know. Some people say that I've heard that. Some people say, well, use the male hairspray, it's better. I haven't found that. Be interested in the comments.
The only thing I've tried is I've tried the hairspray, and I've also worked with like the chipping fluid, like the AK or the
okay. How do you like the chipping fluid?
I think the chipping fluid, after reminding myself what this was like, because I hadn't done this in a while, and as the first winter whitewash I do, you can see it comes off in fairly broad chunks, right? And there's some areas, and we were kind of talking a little bit about this just before we start rolling the camera, but there's some areas, like on the tread plate, where it works quite nicely. It comes off it kind of gets the effect I was looking for. On this front glacier, and again, we'll get close up, so don't worry too much if we can't see it, but here on the side, like, it just comes off in big chunks. And I think it's a factor of the how much hairspray I put. And I gave it a couple of, like, one really good.
Right out of the can?
Yeah,
me too.
And you can still see it still smells very nice. Very nice.
I use 2 coats right out of the can.
Yeah.
And it really flakes off. But that's what I want.
Yeah.
Right? I'm working on a 132nd Q100, and it's on Facebook here and there. But that's what I actually want. But I find that the actual commercial brands that are made by, MIG, AK, those chipping fluids are much more subtle, I find.
Yes.
They don't chip
there's a little bit more control.
A little bit more. I kind of like the big flakes, but
it depends on the effect you're looking for, right? And I wasn't quite sure, to be honest. I wasn't quite sure what effect I was looking for on this. But I think I talked about it in the last episode on this. One thing that will come into this, and we won't do it today, unfortunately, but certainly in the next episode, is that there's always how do you correct, like, how do you get to that? If I think that they have taken off too much, or it's flaked off in bigger chunks, how can I get back to the effect I was looking for, which is maybe a little more subtle, or a little bit more chipped, or like kind of worn away,
or worn or scratched away.
And I think that's oil paints.
Yes,
right?
oil paints, number one.
Oil paints, sure, and then I think your idea, which I hadn't thought of, about using a sponge and white paint.
Yep, tiny bit. Yeah. I call it refinement. Yeah. You're not actually chipping with sponge dipped in paint. You're refining. Yeah. So you've got areas that are fairly like broad. Maybe you want to get a little bit more, because chipping is random.
Yeah, and this stuff, this was water soluble paint. Yeah. And it would, as it would get wet, it would start to run, right? So you can replicate that with oil paint. So all I have to say is that. There's like I like the kind of the effects in the running gear, and that's going to be covered up with a lot of mud.
How do you like that?
That to me is a bit much.
Yeah.
I think it's a great palette to work with.
Yeah.
Like a great base to start working with, but not the final effect I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's where you might want a little sponge.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned to you off camera that I find that if you use mission model paints, and this is I learned from my good friend Brian Fowler, he was experimenting. Mission model paints actually chip differently. They chip like a worn, scratched effect. Another one of my shelf queens is a 148 B17D, and I'm doing swoosh and another episode on those. But you want that worn thing on the ailerons and the fabric, and the mission model paints do chip quite differently.
So it's more of a finer wear.
It's more of a finer wear and scratch surface. And guys, be aware that when you are chipping, especially on aircraft, I find that chipping does add a texture. Like if you've got a lot of chipping going on an aircraft, it will add almost like a little bumps and nicks and things. It's not going to be
the paint coming off and stuff.
It's not going to be a smooth finish. So realize that for the aircraft guys that love smooth finishes, you're going to deal with a bit of that.
Yeah, we're not as particular as the aircraft when it comes to armor and smooth finishes, obviously.
But no, I mean it looks great.
Yeah. So I think it's off to a good start. So we'll carry on doing this. The other thing that's very it'll be interesting to see is that when I did this yesterday, I had hairsprayed it, I let it dry for a few hours, hit it with a flat white, let it dry for like maybe 30 minutes, and then went after it. So now that it's had a chance, now it's kind of sat overnight.
Right.
So there's probably like a good 12 hours.
Yeah.
Does that do anything to it? Now, in my experience, it doesn't. Like I think I'd be almost willing to wager that if I wanted to do this in a month's time, I would get a similar effect.
I've experimented. I experimented with my B17 48 I'm working on because it's totally chipped. And here's what I found. The longer that you leave hairspray on, the harder it is to get off. And I found that the tipping point was about a month where it really becomes hard to get it off. And you'll get a much more subtle chipping effect the longer you leave the hairspray on.
Maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah, as soon as you apply, right? Yeah. 2 cans of spray, 2 layers of hairspray out of a can, fairly heavy, and then if you wait, say, I don't know, a day, it's gonna chip like crazy. You let it wait a week, you're right, about the same. 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's gonna be hard.
But who has 4 weeks, 5 weeks to?
Oh yeah,
right. I mean, that's an accident.
But that's what I found. So. Because I thought sometimes when you're chipping, especially I find with aircraft, is you don't want to chip it all at the same time. Because chipping on aircraft, I find, maybe there's people that disagree, it's much different than chipping armor. Chipping aircraft, you certain rules apply. You want to follow panel lines, you want to follow areas of high wear, right? Armor, yes, you've got that going on there where there's more wear. But I find with aircraft, it's a little more subtle, like weathering for aircraft is subtle.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Everything's a little bit more
subtle. It is. So there you go. I mean, those are the things I found with chipping. As you can see, these episodes are unrehearsed, so we're getting into a discussion on chipping.
Well, we'll talk about that as I, we'll kind of pause and then we'll come back and start hitting it with some warm water and just see what, start working on the other side, see what that's like, and we'll talk through it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're establishing the base note, right, Dave? All of it, there's no washes, there's nothing.
Correct.
You've only done a modulation, which is now hidden after but that'll come back.
Yeah, and then there's painting the tarp, and then there's a bunch of stowage and spare tracks and whatnot that's going on. So
the tarp, what color is that base? Brown?
Yeah, that's not. It's the same. It's the dark brown. It's a mix of the black and mahogany Mr. Surfacer that I use.
And then you work up light from dark to light.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So it's already but we'll paint that separately, and that'll be like a field gray type of thing. I think field gray, maybe I don't know, or maybe I might mix some colors in there, like maybe a field gray or blue or something. Like that.
Beautiful. Yeah, this is looking good. It's looking good. Oh, and one final thing which comes to mind when you look at chipping on some aircraft, what comes to mind is the Key 61 Tonys. The ones with mottled camouflage, patchy green over the natural metal, whatever. If you look closely on some of them, they chipped off almost like a scruffing effect from the wind or
crew walking on it.
Crew walking on it. They didn't come off as much in huge flakes. And I'm experimenting now with, instead of using a brush to get the paint off, use very light sandpaper
Yeah.
and scruff it
Yeah,
off.
you could probably do that here too.
You
right?
could too. Yeah.
Maybe.
There's
all kinds of
Yes.
ways to skin that proverbial cat.
Indeed, skin the proverbial cat.
Yeah. So we'll kind of get set up. We'll start doing some detail work, and then we'll carry on the conversation.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to get down to business of chipping this winter whitewash. Now, again, I've already done one side of the vehicle. We talked about this in the intro. And, overall, I think I'm happy with it. Again, I find with the hairspray, or at least this is the Tresemme hairspray that I use. Tresemme number 3. A couple of good wet coats of it. And I just find with this, it kind of comes off in blobs, which, kind of works for I'm happy with the effect on the road wheels, on the drive sprocket, the turn rollers, and the idler, and certainly the lower hull here. Came off a little bit bigger chunks than I was hoping to see on the side, but again, we can fix that with subsequent oil paints and maybe some sponge technique and whatnot. But this episode is really just focused on the initial chipping. So what I have here is I have a cup of what started off as hot water, which is now kind of warm water. And so I'll work on this kind of raised louver cover here. And I just kind of just wet the surface, and then I'll give it a little bit of time. And already this is starting to come off.
Now, you did one spray coat of the Tresemme out of the can, Dave?
I think I did 2.
2, yeah. That's oh, wow, that's coming off pretty quick.
Yeah. So I want to try and
Are you
control
using
it.
a soft brush or a stiff brush?
This is relatively soft. I have a small stiff brush here, and I have this little scraper thing that I got from Jay's Works, which is just really, you can use the blunt end of a Tamiya stir stick as well. You can see when it comes off, right? So I'm constantly, so maybe I'll just unload the brush and just kind of dry it off and just kind of work. Right, so that looks, so we'll leave that. So that's that. So that came off fairly quickly. So let's see what's happening here. So my earlier concerns about this further drying and hardening and becoming more difficult were unfounded. You can see how it comes off in kind of big chunks, which is not exactly the effect, but again, we can kind of soften that with, maybe we'll go to a slightly softer brush here.
Does it make any difference if the water is warm, cold?
Yes.
And what is your temperature?
This is, this is warm.
Warm.
Higher side of warm. So maybe that's why it's acting so quickly. So maybe instead of flooding, let's try just kind of gently removing. Let's work on this cover here. So again, I'm just working through it very randomly. So was that is everything getting captured correctly there, Robert?
Yes.
Just want to check in with you. Good. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's so the paint that's coming off is kind of thick. Like I think Harvey mentioned it earlier, it's kind of bumpy.
Yeah, it does. It does have a texture when
Yeah.
you take it off.
But that texture will come down when it dries, right? Because there's a lot of water in there.
I find, Dave, that helps sanding it too, because then it even chips more.
Yeah.
When you go over with a fine sandpaper after it's dried, and it takes the lumps down.
So I'm just kind of working on this very randomly, just. And all this is doing, again, the way this works is you have this water-soluble layer in the hairspray. You spray the the white over top. Now, excuse me. Now, usually I always spray, and I always thin with lacquer thinners, but with this I didn't. Right, because if you put lacquer thinners on it, then it becomes really hard. It can become really hard to come off. So all I did is I just thinned the XF2 with a little bit of alcohol and their X20.
You know what I find helps, Dave? With first of all, Tamiya paints chip very well. I find AK paints chip a little bit harder to get off, and I find that if you really want the stuff to come off quickly, instead of thinning your Tamiya paints with their thinner, their X20 or whatever, thin it with their retarder.
Their retarder.
Their retarder thinner, like from Tamiya.
But that's a lacquer thinner.
Yeah, it works.
Does it really?
Yes, it does.
I'd be worried about that. It's not it fighting to come off.
Oh, sorry, not the lacquer thinner. I'm sorry. The retarder in the small square bottle.
Oh, just add a bit of that.
Yes, yeah, or thin it completely with it, without any thinner at all. Then it really comes off.
But that stuff is kind of goopy, though, isn't it?
No.
Is it?
Yep, just thin the Tamiya paint with the retarder in the square bottle, and it'll come off even more.
I will have to try that.
How's it coming off?
Yeah, it's getting there.
I find, though, that chipping the way you're doing now is also a bit of an artist's eye, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
For me, it's like you just can't start, like you're chipping where people walked on, where there's wear, right?
Yeah, no, there's going to be some stowage that's going to cover up some of this.
Your mistakes? Oh, great.
Yeah, that too. That too. But, yeah, getting there. So, again, you're just kind of looking for a bit of a consistent look and feel. What we'll do, maybe I'll pre-soak that's a bit too much.
Yeah, I like to pre-soak as well. You know what I find pre-soaking with as well? One of those mini spray bottles.
Really?
Pump bottles, you know? With water. You just mist it on.
I like the control of this, though. See that? So that's nice. I like that little bit of chipping that's coming off there. That's nice. I like that. Now, this is before you get any washes. So, again, once you put some washes and you work in the other, the white oil paint and whatnot, this will be layered very nicely.
You had quite a bit of contrast going on with that Dunkelgelb. Do you feel that with your chipping you still have it?
No.
Okay, I'm just asking.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Never to be seen again.
Isn't it? Remember we talked about that in my episode of the Sheridan? I tend to cover too much, and so one of our readers is correct, but I usually bring it back with shaders. Yeah,
this will get addressed at subsequent levels, I guess. So I maybe just a note. So the markings on this particular vehicle are, it's just the German crosses. So I put those on, sealed them, and then when I was spray painting the white, I was trying to pay attention to not covering them too much.
Right.
Knowing full well that I was going to do this, where I would kind of you work the paint off. So we'll let that sit for a bit.
I do find that chipping is one of my favorite parts of a model. That chipping part you're doing right now.
Yeah, this is relaxing. I could do this all morning.
Just a note again, though, I find with chipping paint on aircraft to be a little bit more difficult.
If you did this on, it looked terrible.
Yeah,
it's too big.
You have to follow panel lines.
It's too clumsy.
Yeah,
right?
On armor it works. On aircraft, it's less. It's less forgiving.
So what I might do is I might go
for our car modeling friends. Sorry, Dave. For our car modeling friends, I'm wondering, when would you chip? Maybe I'm thinking for those Dakar, African race rally, you could chip mud, right? Because I'm always thinking about the other disciplines of modeling. So be interested in your comments if you car modelers chip paint at all. And I'm thinking chipping mud might be one. Just a thought.
So this is proving to be a bit... So this might be something to go after with some sandpaper.
Yes, yes.
Right? To your point?
Yep. So it's more scratchy.
Yeah. So maybe the application of hairspray wasn't quite so so thick back here.
I also find that you get a different effect of chipping with a soft brush than a bristle brush.
Yeah. And again, you're just looking for random...
Another thought that you guys can consider is sometimes you might want to consider chipping 2 coats of paint. In other words,
like seal this and then
seal it.
Put another blow. Yeah, you could do that.
Go with another different shade of white.
Yeah.
And also you can, like layering and weathering. I find with some chipping on my aircraft, I will go and chip different colors as a modulation technique. And so if I'm working on a B-17, I would chip it with a slightly darker olive, chip it, seal it, and then chip it again with a lighter olive, and then kind of like bring it all together with the airbrush. There are many different ways and techniques of applying chipping techniques.
Yes, indeed. That is true. Maybe if I start something here, will that help? So again, just going after, just trying to pull the white off. There we go. Sometimes you just need to get a start, and then that kind of opens things up. So that looks good. I'm happy with that in there.
So you want less chipping there, Dave?
Well, I wanted more chipping here.
Right.
But this here, I'm happy with. That's coming off nicely.
Yeah, it is a lot more subtle.
Yeah. And again, I think it's because there was probably less hairspray applied here. Now again, this will get, I mean, a good chunk of this is going to get covered up with mud anyways. This will be a fairly muddy vehicle because of the climate it was serving in. There we go. Yeah, it's starting to come off. And again, all this is going to get a nice wash, so that'll add another layer. Okay, so let's get back to the top here. So I'm just working away, trying to get some action on this edge here, just starting to come off, like that. Now there's going to be some tracks sitting on this, so some of this will get kind of hidden.
That looks like a stiffer brush you're using?
No. So just the water's sat on it longer here, right? So it's easier to come off.
Yep, the longer the water sets, the more it chips.
That's right.
Do you remember who invented chipping? technique? I think it was one of the European shows a while back. Do you remember, Dave?
I don't know. I thought the first time I saw the hairspray thing, I think it was Ronaldo. So let's attack the side here. So again, just flooding it with some warm water. We'll let that sit. Now you got to be a little bit careful because I have all these 3D printed clamps here.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're. So I think I'm going to use the software. So there's a lot of hairspray here. So like you can see on these toe shackles here.
I do find that if I chip too much, I can always go back and apply another layer and chip again.
Yeah, exactly.
If you remove too much.
Exactly.
You know you're a hardcore modeler when you go to the local drugstore and all you're looking for is hairspray.
Yeah, especially me.
Yeah, me too. And the people behind the counter have this stereotype, well, why are you interested in all this hairspray?
Well, being follically challenged.
Yeah.
I sent Carolyn in. Carolyn, can you get this for me, please?
Yeah.
She's a good sport. I'm going to start soaking this here just to...
Maybe the next step is to get Caroline to do the chipping while you move on to other aspects of your model. That would save you time.
Yeah, I could set up a little, little assembly line.
Yeah, have her come on and say, this is my wife Caroline. She will chip while I do other parts of the tracks.
While I relax and have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. I'll pitch that to her today, see what she says. There we go, that's starting to come off already. Let's see, let's go back to this. What's happening here? There we go. Now this is not coming off as easy as the other side did, and I'm guessing it's because things have had a little bit more time to set up, which is fine. And some nice chipping back here. Maybe bring in the old plastic thing. So again, just applying the warm water, just kind of working off. So we can go back here. So now this is starting to come off nicely. So you can see. This is very relaxing. Now I'll go aggressively at the S hook here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get rid of all that extra stuff.
How long would you normally take to chip that? Are you going the speed that you would naturally do on a model?
Yeah.
So you could chip that in what, an hour-ish?
Yeah, an hour or less. Maybe. I mean, don't forget half of this was done.
Right, you
Last
did a
night,
bit more, yeah.
Right, so.
Again, not to be repetitive, I find chipping aircraft much more, it takes longer.
Did the aircraft lobby put you up to those comments to try?
Yeah, because I'm trying to move away from armor because all you do is armor. Yeah, I'm the chipping on that B-17 is really a long process.
Oh yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
That's a big pallet
Yeah,
too, right?
and then the panel lines, you want to follow panel lines.
No, again, you got to be careful because I've got a 3D printed
Mm-hmm.
handle back here, so I'm going to be very careful with it. So I'll just get that wet.
Again, for those broader patches, you're going to go back over and add some more color back in of the
Yes.
of the white.
Yes. Whether I spray that on, whether I use oils, I'm not sure. You have
Mm.
depends.
I still kind of like the sponge technique and just dabble on bits of white paint to continue that flaked effect.
Let me do the commander's popular here. It's not glued on.
It's not glued on.
Nope. So I'm just hydrating the rest of the mud, but I think everybody gets the idea, right? So that's coming off nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. That is very nice. Oh. So I might chip well, let me pull this off. So I might chip this more aggressively because there'd be a lot of wear and tear on it. That's good. And then
Looks like it's getting that great layering and 3D effect now.
yeah, it's starting to,
Because it looked, when you showed it to me all white, it looked very two-dimensional.
yeah, exactly.
And you've got more wear on the wheels.
So I'm happy with the commander's comment, so we'll put that aside.
Yeah, it's looking great. I find that here, more chipping I kind of like to see that base yellow popping through. That's my opinion.
Now, for whatever reason, this part here is being very stubborn.
I think that's where a more of a bristle brush and more water might help.
Let's try this guy. So this might be a good candidate for sanding.
Yeah.
Just like the rear one, right?
And sometimes I find that even using your nails to start a scratching effect and then working it from the cut would help a lot. Yeah, would help break up that paint. I think you should go back to the drugstore and return that Tresemme. It's not flake. Just tell her it's not flaking my paint off.
That's right.
And I want a refund.
I want you to look at me like you bought this a decade ago. It does smell nice though. That hairspray reactivates.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I gotta be careful. I want to use the soft brush on these 3D.
How's it coming off now?
Yeah, getting in there. Take some off the grills. So I'm just kind of bouncing around randomly, as you can tell.
Yeah, you've got some whitewash on the barrel too, right?
Yes. Yeah, I haven't even paid attention to that.
See? That's why you need me on this channel.
It's a good thing you're here.
You
get all this stuff.
Yeah, see?
I haven't done any of this yet.
So you can't be absent-minded, Dave. Not like me. See, I forget to leave things like my amps judging badge in your car, my charger in your car. But yeah, I learn from my mistakes.
See, this stuff is like just a little bit of water.
Yeah,
and stuff
it just comes right off. Is that a metal barrel?
Yes, it is. Aber.
Do you coat your metal barrels with anything before you do?
Yeah, I do. I use the that metal primer, like that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you hand brush it on or airbrush?
Hand brush it. Yeah. Just
Hand brush it.
Yeah.
I learn something new every day. I think I'm going to have an equally fun time hair spray technique on a future Hinkle 115 148th kit I bought.
Oh yeah, that was a great pickup.
Yeah, I got it with 50% off at a hobby store in Pennsylvania because the box was damaged. It's a hard to get kits, 148th. Special hobby, Hinkle 115, and the ones operating out of Norway had what you're doing here, that white paint applied to the splinter camouflage.
So you can see I'm just kind of randomly going back and forth with the different brushes. There we go. Now things are starting to come out. Things are starting to come off.
It's coming off now, eh?
Yeah.
So it's just the water soaking in there.
Yeah.
But again, like you talked about earlier, the more hairspray you put on, the more it will come off fairly quickly.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I do find while you're doing that, spraying right out of the hairspray can just as effective as opposed to the trouble of decanting.
I didn't bother. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to spray further away though, right? With the hairspray can, right? Because close up, it's going to get goopy.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, like good
misting it.
Yeah, like a good foot away type of thing.
Yeah.
There we go. It's coming off nicely.
It's hard to see from this angle, but did you apply the whitewash to the inner hull there by the wheels inside?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to start taking that off now. Again, this I can be really rough with because there's going to be so much mud on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's coming off nice. That's perfect. That is great. That's excellent. I love that. Maybe just attack the hubs a little bit more. Right. And if I start attacking, there we go. So this is really just an exercise of just kind of working the model, damping the areas, let the water try and work its way through the white to get to the underlying hairspray, right? Because that's what loosens up the white paint.
Yep.
And That looks good. Oh, a big chunk came off there. Now this thing's really starting to flake off. Which is good, because you want that random, a little bit less fussed about how this happens here, because it's going to get...
It wears off at the bottom.
Wears off, and... You know, when they were applying the whitewash, like how hard would they work to get the existing mud off, type of thing, right?
Yeah. Believe it or not, you can even have winter camouflage on Japanese chihas. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, they operated in northern Japan. That you could see chihas in a winter camouflage.
So
you could chip one of those without the usual tropical scheme.
So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah,
with
that's
that.
great.
All right.
That's great. Yeah, now it's coming alive. Yeah. You know, I kind of like the large chunks of removal, Dave, to be honest. Just refine it a bit more. It's really nice. And I find leaving some of the center areas of armor paneling in the white and the edges, that's a lot of variation, is nice.
Okay, this is really coming off. So there's a big chunk of flaky paint there. We'll leave that. Yeah, I'd say we're almost there.
Yep, that's great. And then it'll even jump when you apply the weathering.
Yeah, I think once you get I'm dying to see what a wash looks like.
You know, we keep talking about this, but it's true. Like when you're doing this, you've really got to get that contrast of the modulation going initially, or you do lose it.
Well, you certainly lose it here.
Yeah. So it's really, what are these things? Do you do modulation on one of these vehicles, or do you do it post modulation and work up with oils? It's always there's never a one-step process of weathering, I find, on a project. It differs.
That's true enough.
From each model to model.
So here I'm just stiff because I can see that the paint's lifted.
Yeah.
So here I'm just really kind of just stippling.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're just kind of taking some off and you're moving some of it around, right? So you'll get that kind of layered chipping almost. Yeah.
When you find, you're flaking, some of the patches remain like islands of paint.
Yes.
That you can break up and move around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, so let's clear that off.
Dave, I'm looking at your room, and I think you have too many models.
Well, this is only really a third of the of the stash.
He's got to whitewash all of these models.
I'm gonna whitewash every last one of them.
Well, I'm looking at while I'm making this banter. You've got a Stormovic, whitewashable. You have a Panzer II, whitewashable. You have a Mert, not whitewashable.
Yeah, I think this will really start to pop once you start getting some more some washes, right?
Yeah, it's popping already, Dave. It's really changed.
Now, the nice thing about this is you can stop, let things dry, settle back down, and then hit it again.
True. You don't have to do it in one sitting.
You don't have to do it in all one sitting. Yeah. So I think for now, forgot to do this thing on the front here. So I think for now, we're...
I love your modulation on the under hull.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to see that again once you get the mud on there. There, I think that looks... And I'll work a little bit more off camera, but I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So it looks like a gloopy mess up here, but again, that'll dry and everything will settle back down again. And then you can always rehydrate and go at it again if you so choose.
I like the fact that you've got some areas that are very little chipped off and others with a lot, right? You want that randomness. Yeah. Because it wasn't really symmetrical chipping, right?
No, that's true enough. And then you have to figure like where would crew go, right? How their behavior affected, like you're telling the story, as it were. But I think that's good. I might work a little bit more on this off camera, but yeah, I think that's it. So the next episode will be kind of where I'll do some of the streaking with the white oil paint. We'll do some of those. So it'll be like kind of the washes. I'll apply some of the mud. So we'll take it that next level, and then maybe the episode after that we'll focus on doing the stowage and finishing off the model. But, so that's it for today. So thanks for hanging out with Harvey and I, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thank you.